Welcome to this week's moonLight of Emuna, Parshas Seitzei. This week's learning should be a schutz for Refuah Shlema, for Shlomas Chacham Bashifra, Nosem Feit Ben Yehudis, Yud Menachem Ben Rucham Per Malkalei, Shmuel Shem Zal Ben Chevchav, Menachem Mordechai Ben Afir, and Lishmas Chanamash Bas Menachem Mendel, Ratza Bas Menachem Mendel, and Heni Bas Chil Mechel. So this week's parsha has the most mitzvahs of any parsha in the Torah. This Seitzei has the most mitzvahs of the 613 mitzvahs, any of the mitzvahs in the parsha, and there's in the Torah. And the Sefer HaChinuch counts pasuk in this week's parsha has two mitzvahs that we don't really hear a lot about. In Perek Chav Daled, pasuk Hey, right after Shishi, as you start Shishi, and this pasuk is very much on my mind, as I'll be in a few hours walking my daughter down to the chuppah mitzvah, my daughter Tilachana marrying Shmuley Smilo. So we wish the whole family a mazel tov. But this pasuk is very much on the mind, as you'll see in a second. It says, Ki yikach ish isha chadasha, if a man marries a new wife, lo yetze batzava, he should not go out to the army, v'lo yavra alav l'chol davar, nor shall it obligate him in any matter, naki yelevesoy shana echos, he should be free for his home for 1 year, v'simach es ishtoi, and he should gladden his wife, asher lokach, that he married. So this pasuk, the Sefer HaChinuch counts as two mitzvahs. Aloisa say that his husband's not allowed to leave his wife in the first year of marriage for an extended period of time. And number two, that he has to gladden her. He has to be mesamecher. Now, normally we know when there's mitzvahs in the Torah, we usually have a lot of details, right? We have a lot of halachas. What are tefillin? How do you put them on? What lulav do you take? How is it cut? How does it have to be connected? Esrog, there's a lot of mitzvahs. Anything, matzah on Pesach. Most of the mitzvahs in the Torah, we have a lot of details. Basar b'chol of Shabbos, we have a lot of details. So it's curious that we don't really have a lot of details. The Chinuch tells us that he should be home mostly. He shouldn't go on extended business trips. And the Minchas Chinuch, who usually has a lot to say on the Chinuch and the details of the halacha, doesn't really tell us much. And the question is, what is this mitzvah of v'simach es ishtoi, that he should gladden his wife for the first year? And first of all, why is it only the first year? That somebody who's married for 10 years, 20 years doesn't have a chiyuv to be gladden his wife? And what does it mean? And why is it that there's no details? How does he gladden her? Buy her jewelry? How much jewelry? How big do the diamonds have to be? Flowers? How many flowers? Why are there no halachas like we have in all areas of halacha? So if the Torah says that the mitzvah that the husband has to be misamech, v'simach es ishtoi, so we have to look to other places to understand what does the Torah mean by simcha. So where do we have simcha elsewhere? So we have, in 2 weeks ago's Parshas Rei, it says v'samachta b'chagecha. Right, you should be joyous on your Yom Tovim. Matter of fact, even Sukkot we know is the ultimate simcha, and it's called Zman Simchasenu, we say in davening, which is also a little bit strange because Sukkot is the yontif where we leave our nice houses, we go sit in a hut. Right, it's cold, it's hot, it's not. And matter of fact, the last Mishnah in Tainus says, Amr b'Shem Gamliel, Ho Yom Tovim liYisrael k'chamisha asar ba'av. There were no Yom Tovim like the 15th day of which we just passed a few weeks ago. Uchiyom HaKippurim in Yom Kippur. Now, if we asked people to describe Yom Kippur, if the Mishnah is saying it's the greatest yontif, and there's a mitzvah to be v'samachta b'chagecha, that means it has to be the greatest simchas on Yom Kippur. If we ask most people to describe Yom Kippur, they would say it's the holiest day, the most important day. But sitting in shul and fasting doesn't sound so much like simcha. So if we want to understand simcha, we have to look at where else it's used. So there's a pasuk in Mishlei, Perek Tezvav, pasuk Lamed. It says Ma'orei nayim yisamach la leiv. That the light of the eyes makes the heart happy, shmua toiva tedashin etzem, and the good news fattens the bones. Now here we have the word yisamach, to make happy. So if we want to understand the word in Tanakh, we usually go to the Metzudas David, right? The Metzudas David explains this for us, and he says, very interesting, and it's a quote that's quoted very often. He says, Ma'orei nayim, the illumination of the eyes, the light of the eyes, ha'orei nayim b'davar ha'mesupak, the illumination of the eyes on something that's questionable, that's something that's uncertain, yisamach leiv, that gladdens the heart. And here's the famous line that he says, Ki ein ba'olam simcha ka'ataras hasveikas. There is no simcha in this world as clarifying doubts, as clarifying sveikas, doubts. The greatest simcha that a person can have is when a doubt is clarified for him. Which means simply that when is a person most unhappy? A person could have everything. He could have all the money in the world. Everything is going well for him. He's healthy. His kids are getting married. Everything's going well. But he doesn't understand what his purpose is. He doesn't understand why he's on this earth. If he did, so then he would be happy no matter the circumstances. Whether he had parnasa, whether he had health, he would be happy because he understood that he has purpose. It's when we're confused and we lack clarity, that's when we have a problem with finding simcha. I could be sitting in the most glorious mansion, waiting for my driver in the most expensive car, going on the most amazing vacations. But if I don't know what I'm doing here, it's very hard to feel simcha. Yom Kippur is a day where we think about what we're doing here. We do introspection. We do tshuva. We think about what it is that important in my life. What am I davening for to Hashem to have a good year? We get a certain clarity on Yom Kippur, and that makes Yom Kippur a day of simcha, and that's why it's considered the greatest of the Yom Tovim, like the Mishnah in Taina says. And the same thing when it comes to Sukkot. Sukkot, we leave all of our luxuries. We sit with just our families around the table. We sit in a sukkah, which represents the tzel of the Shechina, that Hashem is protecting us, and we realize that everything that's important is with us in the sukkah. It's not about the cars and the vacations. It's not about all those things, and that's why it's Zman Simcha Seinu, because we strip away all the things that confuse us and make us forget what our real purpose is. And that's what the Torah is telling a young chassan and kala. By the way, whoever listens to this, don't tell the chassan and kala this word, because I'll probably use it for Shabbos Sheva Brachas. But what's the Torah telling you? That a new couple is coming together. They're going to build a new bias in Klal Yisrael. They're a new link in the chain, right? And Hashem wants them to have an amazing relationship and a beautiful life. Therefore, he tells them, for the first year of marriage, I want you to just focus on each other completely. Don't go on trips. Together they can go on trips. Don't go apart for a couple of nights, even though normally it's okay for a husband to go on a business trip, for a wife to go away. But on the first year, work on that relationship. Get that clarity, what it means that you were meant for each other and nobody else. That you were exactly who Hashem intended for each other. Even with, you'll see flaws and you'll see faults once you start living together. But the Torah says you make each other happy. How do you find happy? Resolve any of those doubts. Focus on each other. Know that this is who Hashem chose for you. Know that this is Hashem brought for you in your life. This is perfect for you. And if you get that clarity the first year, of course you have a chiyuv to be mesameach your wife, to be mesameach your husband the rest of the marriage, after 10 years, after 20 years. But if you do it right the first year, if you focus on each other and you recognize what you have and you appreciate what you have, then you're going to see, then the rest of it is much easier. I'm not saying easy, but easier. When you realize that this is my tafkid in life, with this person I'm going to build a house for Klal Yisrael. With this person I'm going to build nachas for my parents, for Klal Yisrael, for Hashem. Well, if you realize that this is your purpose, then you'll have simcha. And then when things come up as they inevitably do in life, you'll have that simcha. You'll tap into that real simcha, because real simcha is not affected by circumstances of life, even when people go through difficulties. But if they understand that this is part of their purpose and they're where they're supposed to be, they could still be besimcha even in a tsar. We say at the wedding, we'll say tonight and throughout the week of Shav Brachas, Sameach Tisamach Re'em Ahuvim, right? Glad in Hashem, we ask you Sameach, here's that word Sameach, glad in immensely, glad in intensely, Re'em Ahuvim, companions who are beloved, Kisamechacha Yitzircha, as you glad in your creations, Began Eden Mikedem, in Gan Eden, Baruch Atah Hashem, Sameach Chasim Kala. So what's this reference to? We're asking Hashem to gladden the Chasim Kala, like Hashem gladdened Adam and Chava in Gan Eden. But based on what we're explaining, it's very simple, because when Adam and Chava got married, they had clarity. They knew they were meant for each other because there was nobody else on planet Earth. There was nobody else. They knew Adam and Chava never had any doubts. There were no sveikas, right? And therefore, we ask that Hashem, that a chassan kala is standing under the chuppah by Sheva Brachas, we want Hashem to give them that type of joy, that real joy. And that's what the Torah is commanding, v'simachas ishtoi. But it goes both ways, for a chassan to a kala to a chassan. Bring that simcha into your lives. Recognize how lucky you are, how fortunate you are, surrounded by family and friends, being brought to a chuppah, and you spend that first year focusing on each other, appreciating each other, forgetting about the little things. Everybody has little things that annoy each other, but focusing on that love, and that you have a unified purpose in bringing about kvod shemayim, to bringing about amazing things for Hashem and for the Jewish people. And I think it's no coincidence that the parsha ends off with Amalek, because what's the opposite of Simcha? Simcha is Amalek. Amalek presents itself as, I want to bring you all the wonderful things of this world, of the materialistic world, of the physical world. But the truth is, Chazal tell us, it's brought down in Sfarim, I didn't look it up, I don't remember exactly where, but that the gematria of Amalek is the same gematria of Suffolk. Amalek's goal is to put doubt into your life. And as long you can have all the greatest things in the world, but when you're filled with doubts, there's no Simcha. That's what Amalek tried to do Jewish people, to give them doubts, to put doubts into their minds, to give them doubts, not to have real simcha. And therefore, the antidote to Amalek, before we get to the remember Amalek, Zachar Sashashlach Amalek, we remember, Hashem tells us, remember what real simcha looks like. And I saw a beautiful idea somebody showed me from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. He says that simcha, joy in the Torah, is never about individuals. It's always something we share, right? We said that this newly married man doesn't serve in the army, right? So he could stay at home and be and be misamech his wife, simach his ishtai, right? Real simcha comes by, it's not just him working on his own happiness, but that he's bringing happiness to his wife. And the other places where we mentioned simcha, right? The pasuk we quoted before about samachta b'chagecha, it's v'samachta b'chagecha, and then the pasuk goes on. Again, this is Devarim Tezayin, pasuk Yudalad in Parshas Re'eh. V'samachta b'chagecha, ata uvincha v'itecha, you, your sons, your daughters, v'avdecha, your servants, v'amasecha, your maidservants, v'alevi, and the Leviim that live with you, v'ager, v'ayosim, and the convert, and the orphan, v'almana, and the widow, asher b'sharecha. Torah's idea of simcha is not focusing on yourself only. Simcha is brought about by joining with others. Simcha is shared. Simcha is not, how can I be most happy? I can only be most happy by giving to others. V'simach es ishtoi, v'samachta b'chagecha, atu v'incha v'itecha. And you have it a few psukim earlier also in Parshas Re'eh, in pasuk Yud Aleph there. V'samachta l'fnei Hashem lekecha, atu v'incha v'itecha, v'avdecha v'mascha levi asher b'shrecha, v'ager v'ayotzim v'mana asher b'kirbecha, v'makam asher yivcha Hashem lekecha l'shachin shema Yisham, right? That Hashem tells you that's going on Shavuos. The first pasuk we said was going on Sukkos. But the point is that simcha is by giving, not by keeping everything for yourself and figuring out how can I be most happy. Simcha is joy. So it's really two messages to a chas and kala, but really two messages to all of us. A chas and kala spend the first year giving simcha to each other by clarifying how amazing everything is, how lucky we are, how fortunate we are, how good Hashem was to us, getting rid of those doubts, any doubts that might be lingering, like Adam and Chava, like we say in the fifth bracha of Sheva Brachas, like Adam and Chava in Gan Eden. We ask Hashem to give them that same kind of clarity, and then to do for each other. They have to do for each other. We see that the concept of simcha in the Torah is this clarification of doubts, and it's also doing for others. You want to experience and appreciate real simcha in your own life, the best way you do that is by bringing simcha into other people's lives. And that's why the lashon is always, you shall gladden, you shall gladden, you shall rejoice, you shall gladden yourself, your children, your families, strangers, the almana, the ger. You cannot have simcha if you're not being misamech other people. And a new chassan and kala cannot have simcha without being misamech others. So if we all are coming up to Yom Kippur, which you just said, okay, still a little bit of time, I'm sorry, I know it's early in El, but don't want to scare anybody, but the period of El to do tshuva. The tshuva is supposed to be misimcha, me'ahava, to really to express that to Hashem. So the way to do that is by giving of ourselves for others, for thinking about Hashem, for remembering that everything that happens to us, to get rid of all the doubts, to know that even difficulties that I might be going through, they're from Hashem, and Hashem is going to take care of us, and Hashem always has taken care of us and always will take care of us. And we focus on each other and bring simcha into other people's lives, and then we'll have true simcha, and that'll lead us to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that'll be full of clarity and full of simcha, true simcha, real simcha of clarifying what our purpose is in here, to connect to Hashem, to live with Hashem, and to do for others. And with that, I wish you all a beautiful Shabbos. Mazel tov again to my daughter and son, Tila and Shmuley. The zivik should be Eliyaf. Everything should go well. Mazel tov and good Shabbos.